what is the life science sector? How does the market define it, and how does Markel define it? Andrew, do you want to go first?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, life science to us is the more traditional companies like medical devices and manufacturers, distributors of, but also it includes medical technology companies that manufacture food supplements, cosmetic devices, and all of the professionals that contribute to the sector, whether that's on the safety side or the regulatory side. So it's a pretty diverse industry, encapsulating a lot of companies.
Amazing. And then Louise, obviously from our side, we just launched the new products.
Yes.
How has our appetite kind of differed to what we've seen before?
Our appetite has definitely widened in that sector. Our appetite is pretty wide anyway. So from the sort of life cycle of a life science industry, from R&D all the way to sort of clinical trials, and then to the end product being manufactured and produced.
Amazing. And obviously all of those industries have got very specific risks, right? So when you look at the life science sector, you quite often see general commercial combined policies being written which aren't necessarily quite fit for the needs of the client. With working with Markel, how has that changed things for your clients, being able to have the specialist life science combined policy that we've brought out to the market?
Okay, so I mean, the specialist covenants are really vital because there are risks that are sort of unique to companies that operate within the life science sector. General policies will give sort of fairly sort of basic sort of product liability cover, for example, whereas a specialist product like the one that Markel offers includes efficacy cover. It also includes things like cover for demonstrations or training, etc., on devices and cosmetic products. So, these are quite specialist covers which you won't find in general policies, and you'll find actually with some of your competitors, their policies won't include them either. So, these are really vital for these sort of companies, and using a specialist insurer with a specialist wording, it's vital because they'll also have the expertise when it comes to claims. Business support. You guys do the tax support, business continuity support, legal support. And with your expertise in this sector, it's only going to be a positive for the policyholder. You're not going to get that through a general insurer.
How are you finding that in your other broker conversations, especially around the value adds and everything else that the policy has?
Yeah, so we're going back to the first point, we're promoting our new launch of the product, and we're elaborating on that expertise in that sector, and we're starting to drive more inquiries off the back of that.
So obviously you guys have been working together for a while, and Andrew, you've been working with Markel. Have you got an example where that policy has really responded well for your clients and just our overall partnership as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of examples, obviously on a name basis, but for me, the situations where Markel do really come in and score well is where some of the maybe class 3 medical devices, class 3 cosmetic devices, which are right at the top end of the risk scale. A lot of insurers won't touch them. And some of those companies want big limits. They want 5-10 million on product liability. They might have quite extensive sales into North America. Most insurers will walk away from that. But Markel will step up.
Lean in.
Yeah, exactly. We'll step up to the plate. And having that ability only helps us as a broker to sort of place what can be quite difficult risks.
Yeah, for sure. And with those difficult risks, I think a lot of brokers seem to think that life science is quite niche. When we've done all of our research around the proposition, the life science sector in the UK is huge. And it's only set to grow. Are you seeing that in your kind of conversations, Louise, with wider brokers, that they understand what the life science sector is?
Yeah, so with the brokers, they have to look for all the different types of coverages to fit their clients' sort of needs that they need. So we're here to give them that extra value added service with our expertise and that specialism, so we can guide them and educate them in which sort of products that they need, and just tailor it to what they're looking for.
Yeah, and are you seeing that growth from your side, as in the market getting bigger and there being a lot more cases that are up for grabs?
Well, most definitely. I think the life science industry is increasing. I think that another important thing, I consider life science still a niche sector, even though it's so large. The complexity of these businesses is changing. 20 20 years ago when we first started doing this sort of business, it was pretty much product liability driven.
Yeah.
Getting a limit of indemnity that ticked the box as far as the NHS were concerned, etc. But now risks are a lot more complex. There's other lines of cover. Those lines between each cover are actually starting to become a bit blurred. So, things like cyber, professional indemnity, they're becoming more and more important. And the Markel policies have got to adapt. And obviously Markel launched their new product at the start of the year, which included things like cyber. Med mal's become more of an issue as well. So there's so much information now available that, actually the nature of the inquiries that we're getting in now are challenging us more on what terms and conditions are the insurer offering. Are they offering this? Are they offering that? Giving an expectation on pricing, that sort of thing. So again, if you're dealing with a broker that doesn't really understand the market, they're not really going to understand those questions, and they're certainly not going to be able to provide solutions because they're not going to have the markets lined up.
What comes to mind when you think of Markel, and when you're talking to your clients, prospective clients, what do you say to them? What do you say to them about Markel?
An experienced insurer in the marketplace, and a leading insurer in the marketplace when it comes to life sciences. Crucially, they've got the sort of the scope of cover within their wording that will meet most of your needs. And that word is constantly evolving. Like you just said, it has evolved lately. And I think on the claims side, that expertise, knowing the industry, knowing how things work, is vital. I mean, claims are infrequent, shall we say, but when they happen, they can be expensive. And to have that sort of that expertise for a policyholder to lean on is really important. So, from my perspective, our perspective as a business, Markel are, a really strong player because of the expertise and the breadth of cover under their policy.
So we have got crazy growth ambitions heading up to 2030, as is the whole market in terms of growth. So what's next for you guys in terms of partnership? Is there anything that's kind of on the horizon for the rest of 26 other than just writing a lot more business?
I mean, for me, I think the sort of the relationship and the speed and efficiency of the relationship, I think is going to become more key going forward.
Yeah.
I think speed of response is vital, and certainly in the insurance market at the moment, where a lot of insurers struggle with responses.
Yeah.
So for me, having got that wording. I think it's put you in a better position. It's widened your appetite. I think you've got to continue to look at your appetite, because I think a lot of companies within this space are developing and changing, and I think you've got to grow with that. And I think the insurance industry has been a little bit slow in reacting to the change in the environment. You've come to the fore on that, but it's only a first step. You've got to continue to sort of develop that wording and really develop that trading relationship to sort of keep it personal. We've had a lot of success with Markel on the back of personal relationships that we've got with underwriters, and we want to continue with that and continue to develop it, really.
Yeah.